welcome to another Insider Workshop presented by City Moguls. We are so excited to have one of our Rockstar members here hosting a workshop on all the things that she is an expert in. Just a bit more about Maggie. She is an international business and leadership coach and helps service based women entrepreneurs attract consistently paying clients without overwhelm. Throughout her coaching model, she's helped her clients align their mindset, business skills, and high performance habits to transform their business from unreliable sources of income to a client attracting gem. She is also a mom in a blended family with 4 kids and loves spending time in nature, traveling, dancing, which we all love too,
Nice.
and good food. Um, in this workshop, Maggie's going to help us understand why it is hard to follow through for most people and what keeps you from being fully accountable. She's going to teach us a 5-step framework that will help you increase your productivity and follow through. And we'll also get some simple tips for achieving our most important goals every week. So this is an incredible opportunity to hear from one of our amazing members and all of the incredible things that she can help us do to be better leaders in our businesses. So over to you, Maggie.
Awesome. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for having me. And thank you for Linda and those who are joining live. And then thank you for those of you who will watch the recording. So yes, so thank you for the wonderful introduction. We're going to jump straight to the workshop. And today we'll talk about how to always follow through without getting overwhelmed. Because actually, for entrepreneurs, time management and that productivity, or the challenges that come with it, procrastination or pushing things through, is actually the third biggest challenge for entrepreneurs, right after financing or marketing and gaining new clients. So I actually have a quick story to start the whole thing that I found fairly funny. It's a real story from Victor Hugo, so the French writer, who in about 1830 he had a contract to write his next novel, and with his editors. But then 12 months he was going in, socializing, going out, and the novel didn't happen. So finally, the editor the publisher got really upset and gave Victor Hugo 6 months and said, you have to write it in 6 months, otherwise the contract is out. So what Victor Hugo did in order to kind of force himself to create was to ask his assistant to take away all his clothes to go outside to be able to lock himself inside. And he did indeed wrote the novel, and that was actually The Hunchback of Notre Dame, in 5 months instead of 6. So now we're not going to go to such drastic measures to get you guys do what you're planning to do or what you're trying to accomplish in your business. But I wanted to, just talk about it to say that you're not the only one. So if you think that, oh, you're the only procrastinator and you're the only one who is hard, so who maybe has a hard time to do certain tasks or certain things that are hard in your business, you're not the only one. We all have those moments, some of us more than the others, but we all are there. So at first, let's start with just, what is procrastination? And on the opposite thing, what is follow through? So procrastination is the action of delaying or postponing something that must be done, right? So we're delaying, we're postponing. And I highlighted the must be done for 2 reasons. Because, when I think about it, if there's things that we kind of think we need to do, or we think that we should do, but they're not really core to our business, and I will talk about it in a second. And if you're delaying it, then maybe that's not even, you don't need to do that, right? So you're not procrastinating on something that's important. Maybe we should just push them out, say, no, I'm not going to do this. And also must be done. So that was, I took that definition out of a dictionary. But in your business and so on. It's more of the things, or the things we should focus on the things we want to do rather than must do. Because as entrepreneurs, and I will talk it in a moment as well, we are the CEOs of our business. We get to decide what is important and what's not, right? Rather than give away the power to things or other circumstances that we think are forcing us to do certain things. So then follow through is to actually continue something until it's completed. And again, we'll talk about some strategies, how to do it and how not to get overwhelmed while you're trying to do it. But at first, I did want to start with the reasons for procrastinations. And maybe, I will pause after talking about the reasons, and I want to have if a quick conversation. If you're, maybe some of them are familiar with you, maybe some you have more than others, but it's good to understand first and be aware why we're doing certain things before we go into trying to improve on them or change them and so on. So the first reason might be, and you might find some of them relevant, some of them not, but this is what I found in my, with working with my clients or talking to entrepreneurs, observing, doing research and all that. So lack of vision. And yes, we need a big vision to our business. And quite often we have it, or most of us have it. That's why we start. But maybe if you don't have it defined well, that can create procrastination. But I'm also talking about vision, a smaller vision. So, okay, I know what I want to achieve in 10 years, or where I see my business in 5 years. Where is that big mission that I have? But how does it translate into this year's, right, vision? And what am I trying to achieve? And if we're not clear, or when we're not clear on that, then it's easy to kind of, move, change lanes and kind of procrastinate and so on. And that is related to not having goals. So goals and vision are different, right? Vision is more of our destination, and goals are helping us to get there. So when we start breaking down our vision into, okay, if in 5 years I want to be here in my business, well, what do I need to do, this year and the next year and the following year to get there? And in order to do that for this year, well, what are the tasks I need to accomplish and so on? And we'll talk about it in 5 steps. But if we don't have those guiding posts to our destination, or that map or GPS, whatever you prefer, the goals, then again, it's very easy to take on too much, to overwhelm ourselves, and then start procrastinating. Then the third one, I think we all have it because it's totally normal, is our human brain preference for instant gratification. So our brain is wired, the monkey brain, right, to like the things where we can see results right away, right? And it's not natural for us to, like that delayed gratification. But all the research and studies show that people, and even with kids, right, who can push themselves to wait for certain things and be patient and do the things that not everybody can do, that require the effort up front, and then you can, you seed the plant and then reap the rewards later, are more successful. And in our business, it works the same way. So I'll talk about some tricks, but like being aware, even when, your brain is looking for that instant gratification and trying to do something else to which you should be, or you want to be working on, that maybe not be giving you results right away, is even being aware can help you move and kind of starts towards that task or that goal. Then, another reason, because you'll see in a moment that a big part of, doing the things that are hard to do and following through is planning. And very often when I talk to some of my clients or people who are like, oh, I don't like to plan because I have the feeling that I'm kind of boxed in. I like to be spontaneous. I like to come, and then planning will make me like too organized, too boxed in, and I don't feel like I have that freedom. So that's a feeling, and I want to dismantle that. It's a myth, but that's kind of one reason too. Another one is bad habits that we all have, that we might have accumulated, that don't serve us. Like, for example, the phone and social media and having all kinds of notifications going on and distracting us. Because the distractions are really focus killers. Actually, it takes us about 15, 20 minutes. So let's just say you're working on something, a project, right? That maybe will require a lot of focus. You're being creative, so you need peace and quiet and so on. So to get into the state of flow, when you're the most creative, the most productive, it goes like really flows well, you need about 15, 20 minutes. Now, if you get there and then you get distracted, let's say by a phone ring or by a notification, and you move towards just checking something, you need another 15 and 20 minutes to get in to that flow when you're the most productive, the most creative, and so on. So if you have those kind of habits that allow for those distractions, it's very hard to get into the state of flow and stay in it, so you can actually accomplish certain tasks much faster with the better output. And it takes you much longer to accomplish anything because you're coming back and forth, and it takes a lot of energy. And that's where that overwhelm comes in, and not wanting to follow through because it took you twice as long, for example, to what it should have. Then another one is no trust in oneself. And what I mean by that, it's very subconscious, but let's just say if we think about it this way, I will tell you a story. We had a friend. So when I was at the university, we had a friend, we slept at the dorm and there's 4 girls. And we had one friend that every time we were involving her in something or wanted her to go out and so on, she would say yes. And then last minute she said, oh no, I'm not going. Right. And it was like over and over and over again. So at some point, we stopped trusting her that she would come, and we stopped inviting her anywhere, because she never did it, or out of 20 times she would go once. The same happens with ourselves, the relationship we have ourselves. So if we tell ourselves that we will do something and then we don't follow through, it's like we're taking away those chips from the bank of trust subconsciously. Right? So then it might get to the point when that relationship with yourself has, well, what's the point of even trying? I've never succeeded in this. Like whenever I start this, I never complete, right? So what's the point? Because we have that, lack of trust. And whether we realize it or whether it's subconscious, it doesn't matter, right? So 4 more. Yes, 4 more. Overscheduling. That's, again, we've all been there. Naturally, we tend to overestimate what we can do in a day or a week, and we underestimate what we can do in a year. So again, often happens when you might not have habits or good planning and so on, you overschedule yourself a day or a week, and then you get overwhelmed, and then you feel bad because you thought you could accomplish all that. Maybe you made some commitments and then you couldn't, and then the negative nagging nanny is talking to us, oh my God, you didn't do that again, you missed that deadline again, and so on, and that doesn't help. So that's definitely one. Or it even creates that overwhelm when you just don't want to start, right? Like I remember, it's a story that happened to me once in my corporate background, my corporate job, where we had so much work. I'm usually pretty effective. I can plow through a lot of work. But at that time, we had so much work that it paralyzed me. Like I was burnt out and I was staring at the screen of my computer. I remember moments when I was staring at the screen of my computer and I was paralyzed to do anything because I knew there was no way I can meet the expectations, I can meet the deadlines. So this was like, it's very drastic example, but that's what can happen when you put on yourself as an entrepreneur and maybe owner of your business, too much expectation of what you can complete within a certain amount of time. You'll just get paralyzed. And then lack of true commitment. And I have one quote here and I'll share one and another. By true commitment, I mean like really understanding and really, really deciding that this is what I want to do, that this is important to me and so on. And the James Clear has, if you commit to nothing, you'll be distracted by everything. And then I have another quote that comes from Arturo, who says that there is a difference between the interest and commitment. When we're interested in something, we'll only do it when circumstances allow us. And when we're committed to something, we'll find a way, no matter what. So now think about if you had a puppy, you decided out of the blue you wanted a puppy. When you take that puppy on, you commit to taking care of them. And even if before you were telling yourself you don't have time to do this, or you don't have time to do that, or you're really, you never have time, if you got that puppy, you would figure out the 2 hours a day or whatever it takes to feed them, to, go out on a walk and a run, because you are 100% committed. So sometimes it's that, like, okay, if I can't find time to do something, do I really, really want to do it? Am I really, really committed in it? Or am I just interested and I think I could do it? Or maybe I think I should do it because of, some sort of expectations that others have of me, or maybe I have, but I'm not really that interested in it, or it's not that important to me. Then the next one is perfectionism. This a lot, I see a lot of people struggling with it. I had, for example, one client who reached out to me and gave me, she was working on marketing, promotion kind of strategy. And she was like, oh, I have these 4 posts and I'm spending so much time, I can't decide which. I'm like, fine, just send it to me. Let's just look at it and so on. So she sent me, and between there was one, kind of template and the other, and then there was 2 versions of each. There was barely any difference. I had to look for good 5 minutes to really see the difference of those posts. And she was spending hours trying to decide. So again, that perfectionism, as opposed to excellence, perfectionism usually comes from us trying to, be perfect externally to the world. Oh, what will others think? Is that good enough for them? And so on, right? Whereas excellence is doing the best you can with the resources you have right now, with the knowledge you have right now. And then you put it out to the world, and then you learn from it, and you do better next time when you learn and so on. And yes, of course, that when we're working on a project and the project is for some kind of expert designer and we want to have a presentation, that designer might pick up certain things, we want it to be slick and so on. So we might need to spend more time than when we're doing a presentation or a talk for a small group of people that know nothing about the design. And they won't even pick certain things that we think are important. Right? For them, the important part is the content and what they're going to learn, and not whether that line is this way or that way, for example, right? So we can adapt that, the time we spend on something, to the audience. We want to do the best. Of course, we want to put the quality work, but we don't want perfectionists to stop us, because that, as humans, we're not perfect. No matter what we do, it will never be perfect. And that's the great thing about it, because excellence allows us to grow. Oh, perfectionism holds us back. We can't grow with perfectionists. And then, as I call it, employee mindset. So if you've ever been an employee, I have been, and I have been also a leader in a corporate, but I don't know about you. But if you've ever been an employee has a job, right? There's responsibilities. And unless you're passionate about it and you treat it as a career and so on, very often a lot of what you do is because the manager gives you and you're driven by deadline and because you have to do it, right? It's like, okay, they're paying me, I got to do it. Well, when you are the owner and the CEO of your business, there is nothing you really have to do. You get to decide. You're in charge. You're in control. So you get to choose, and instead you can want to do it. And then when you want to do it, then that's a different approach to things like, I want to do it. I choose to do it, as opposed to the things like, oh, I have to do it, right? So like if we have to do something and we don't really want to, it's hard to do, right? It's hard to get started. It's hard to finish. But when we change that mindset into no, like I'm in charge, I get to decide if I want to work with this client or not, if I want to do this project or not, if I want to take on this or not. And if I decide to want it, then I want to do it. I'm going to have fun with it and so on, right? So as your CEO, your own, and you need to be your own manager, right? You need to be your own person who sets the deadlines. And, sometimes our clients help us, right? We have a project, there's a deadline, it's one, but we don't have also that structure, our external structures that are pushing us forward. We need to create it, however it works for you. So yeah, I wanted to ask if there is anything that resonated with you, and maybe, would you have challenges with? Anybody wants to chime in?
I mean,
Sure. The perfectionism, I like that excellence you can grow, but perfectionism you can't grow. I think maybe all of us as entrepreneurs, right? I think we're all perfectionists. I'm not really sure, but I know I am, and I struggle with that. So I like that. And that's true. Just, and even like what you said, like with Instagram, with social media, you're absolutely right. Sometimes they say don't have to be perfect, just kind of just post it, just put it out there. And it's, so yeah, I like that point.
I know for myself, I'm a big overscheduler. Like, even as you were talking, I was looking at my week and I was like, every minute is planned. And then I end up like moving, things to the following week that I'm like, I just won't have time to get to that. And then I like start to feel bad because I'm like, you should make time for that. So I always find every week I overschedule myself, and it's especially been difficult with like having to take on more responsibility for the company, like with my co-founder being kind of on semi-mat leave. So yeah, I think that's like these are all such important things that we all deal with all the time, like every day.
Anybody else? All right. So let's move on to the 5 steps framework to sort of follow through and eliminate procrastination. And by eliminating, I don't mean never feel the feeling, because we all do, we're human, but being able to respond to that feeling and manage it and still, and still do it and still do whatever we plan to do. So, and then as I go through the steps, I will also share the tips that work for me, that work for my clients, and so on. So like other kind of tools that you can use. But first of all, is definitely building up that self-trust. So especially maybe if you're in a situation where you make a lot of promises to yourself and you don't keep them, right? So first of all, we need to love and accept ourselves, meaning let go of that perfectionist. We'll never be perfect. And sometimes the things we create we'll be proud of and it will be great. And sometimes we'll put something out there and it'll be like, oh my God, what I was thinking, right? Or yeah, there will be weeks when everything will go through, we'll plan, we'll do everything, it will be amazing. And then there will be weeks when life happens, things will happen, and we won't follow through, or we drop some stuff, whatever it is. Being compassionate to ourselves and saying, okay, it happened, it is what it is. What can I learn from it and move forward, right? And then that's it, not wallow or dwell into and beat ourselves up into whatever happened. Then learning to keep the promises to yourself. And with every habit and any change we want to do, starting small, even if it's okay, I'm making a decision, taking 2 minutes to really think it through before I say yes to something, right? Can I really do it? Can I truly commit to it, even if it's for myself, my own? And if the answer is no, saying no, right? One of the very difficult things for us as human beings to do is saying no, and whether it's to ourselves or others, because human beings are tribal animals. We want to belong. And saying no means somebody's not going to be happy. I'm going to be outcasted. I actually had with my husband, we had this conversation with our 9-year-old daughter because she has a play date to date with friend. And one of her best friends, when she told them, she wasn't happy about that. Oh, you're going to another friend. And she was telling us, well, I want to make everybody happy. Well, you can make everybody happy. And in the same in your business. So learning, that you can keep your promise for yourself, but you also starting with self-love and, and self-acceptance. So then developing that self-concept, and that goes with the first two kind of subpoints to it is, I always finish what's important to me, or I can create time what it's important to me. So not everything. It's not about doing it all. It's about really being clear on that vision in your business, even on your personal life. What is the most important things? What are the most important things that are moving the needle in my business? And if I commit to them, I will complete them, or I will create time for that. And then what's not important, I need to learn to say no to some of it, at least, right? And even if it's one thing in the week, you start small, easy things a week. Okay, what can I drop? I have this to-do list. And then the easiest way is if you had something on the to-do list for a month or two, and you didn't get to it and the world hasn't ended, you probably can let it go and just scratch it off your to-do list. And if it ever pops up, then you assess it. You'll feel better, just out. And then, taking 100% responsibility for our decision. So kind of the same, right? If I committed to doing that or decide, I'm not going to blame circumstances, or I don't have time and so on, but it's like, okay, have I overcommitted? And if I'm realizing I'm overcommitting, I'm just going to deal with it, right? I'm going to tell the client or my friend or whatever, hey, like I overcommitted, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. Or, okay, well, if I'm committing and I can say no, I need to finish. How can I do it, right? How can I make it happen? Kind of taking that time to think it through, plan it out, even if it's in our mind, and finishing. And then learning and improving. So just, really, again, every time we do something, we can always learn. We can learn from things that went well, what worked, and maybe what still we can improve. And we can learn from things that didn't work out the way we wanted. And then we learn, we apply, and we move on. Again, without really dwelling. And I know that sometimes it's easier said than done. And sometimes we need to, let ourselves dwell a bit and feel sorry for ourselves and be in that negative type of emotion. And then, move on once it's passed. But we can learn, how to not let it overcome or take over. So then the second part, the second step, it's really having a clear vision and knowing your why for everything. So why am I doing this? Is it really aligning with my vision? Does it really aligning with what I want to accomplish this year in my business or in my personal life? What is my why? Because if the why is truly compelling, if the why I really believe in it, it's much easier to follow through, right? It's much easier to tell yourself, okay, I got to do it. And this is what, kind of reminding that long-term goal and long-term gain that I'm going to have if I do this thing right now. So being intentional about anything we do and setting those SMART goals. And I didn't write it down, but it's really specific, measurable, actionable, timely, and I'm missing now, reasonable. Meaning that when we over scheduling, and one of the tips is when you have a big project, chunk it down into smaller parts. And I mean, even like, for example, me, if I record a podcast, so I have a podcast. When I record an episode, I don't do it all at once. One thing I have is I have a running list of ideas. So sometimes I have, a conversation with a client, I see something, I read something, and an idea comes, I write it down. So then on a separate day, right? I have my little schedule. On a separate day, at some point in a week, I schedule, okay, I'm going to pick what I'm going to record next, and I'm going to write the content, kind of like thoughts. Okay, what do I want to talk about in my podcast? And then I record it on a separate thing, on a separate sitting. And then once I record it, yes, I'm ahead a little bit, right? So I have stuff scheduled, and then another day, I might schedule. So it just becomes now a smaller task to do. If I had to do it all in one sitting, yeah, it would be super hard. And I would never find time, because that would be taking me, half a day or 4 hours. Like, oh my God, when am I going to have time? So when we break up into logical chunks, a project or whatever we're working on that takes longer than, let's say, an hour or two, right? Like if it's an hour and a half, then yes, we can carve out time, and that's fine. But when it takes a bit longer, chunk it up into logical chunks and see how you can schedule, because then it doesn't feel so overwhelming. Anytime you have a task in front of you and you feel overwhelmed, that probably means that task is too big for you to complete in one sitting. So then maybe check in with yourself and say, like, okay, why am I feeling overwhelmed? Is it too hard? Is it too much? What is it? And then break it up to smaller chunks. So when you look at the task, you're like, oh yeah, I can do it, no problem. I can sit down now and I can do it. So then, yeah, when we're intentional and when we start to chunk, then we can make a decision, okay, am I doing it or not, right? Why am I trying to do this? Does this align? And here's the decision sort of questions you can ask yourself, whether it's smaller things or bigger, is, does this align with my values? So if that project, I have values in my business, I want to follow, does this align with my values? Does it align with my vision for my business and my why for my business? And if the answer is no, then it should probably be a no. I don't want to take it on, right? Does this align with my current goals? For example, for this year, for this month. So maybe taking on a podcast, it aligns with my values, it aligns with my business, why it's great, awesome. But in the next 3 months or in the next whatever, the goals that I have won't allow me to take on this big of a project. So maybe that's a 2022 goal. Maybe that's something, I'm put on the night table. I'll keep thinking about it. I'll keep coming back, just having on my back mind. Or maybe it's in 2 years, but in my business, I'm not ready. So does it align with my, current goals? And then what's the net positive outcome? And I don't know if you can see it, probably not. What's the net positive outcome? And that what I mean by effort that it will take you to complete certain thing, the impact that project can have, and let's say profitability. So if it's for your business, right? So is the profitability an impact that I'm gonna have through that project worth my effort? Maybe it's a lot of effort for little money and no impact. Or maybe, yep, it will be a big effort, but I can have huge impact and my business will do well at the same time. Right? Or maybe it can have a big impact, but the profitability is so, and it's so much effort that we're not ready. So I need to rethink that, right? Maybe again, next year's project, I need to rethink how it can be more profitable. Because, we have all businesses, right? We're not charitable institutions. If we were, that's a different story. If you're a nonprofit, that's great. But if you're a business, you want to make money that will compensate for all the effort you do while having impact, positive impact on the work. All right, number 3, be proactive and plan. And by planning, and I'll explain, I don't mean taking the big to-do list, sitting the day off thinking, okay, what am I going to do today? And kind of schedule. Okay. What I mean by that is a strategic planning. So something that you do annually, right? And then quarterly, maybe reviewing, okay, this is my big vision for this year. Every quarter, more or less, this is what I'm going to do. And let's review it quarterly. Okay. Let's review it quarterly. How am I doing, right? But then with that, because very often I see, and I've seen that in a corporate world as well, we have these big strategic meetings, 3 days, great plans, off to the shelf, and everybody forgets about it, right? And it just collects the dust, and then everybody is in the middle running like a hamster in a spinning wheel, doing this way going, not that way. So to avoid that, you want to align what you're doing monthly, weekly, daily with these goals, right? And for example, like I have a little system that I'm teaching my clients, very simple. I deal with solopreneurs, so I'm not necessarily helping big corporations, so it doesn't have to be all that complicated, right? You want to align your systems to, if your business is not complicated, keep it as simple as you can to however, whatever your business says. The simpler, the better. But you want to, so the planning tactical, you really want to plan weekly. Like one of the best books ever that I highly recommend is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And in that book, he says, if you're just spending daily kind of planning, yeah, that's fine, but you're not being proactive. You're just kind of like extinguishing fires and just, getting maybe a hold of your day. You need to plan weekly. And personally, and I always recommend to my clients, I spend 30 minutes on the weekend, sometimes Saturday, sometimes Sunday, depends on when I have time. 30 minutes of looking at my week. I have 3 bigger goals that I align my actions with, and I plan. And I remember when I started doing that, before I didn't do it, I was more of a day-to-day, okay, what do I have today? Okay, whatever. But before, when I started doing it, it gave me so much calm and reduced so much my stress because I was going into the week knowing. Now, Victoria, it's not about scheduling every minute of your day. So that's, it actually the planning should increase your flexibility in a way that you're planning your days for a regular day, not for a perfect day when everything goes perfectly and no meetings go longer and nothing happens in between. You want to leave time in between to kind of move things around if needed. But it's much easier to move things around. That's why I really think planning increases flexibility when you know what you have. Like there was a week when I got sick one day. So whatever that day I had, I was like, out. I couldn't do anything. But because I knew what I had going on next days, I was like, okay, maybe I chunk tap things that I wanted to do, let's say on Friday, into even smaller chunks and said, okay, well, this week I have to do this, but the rest I'll move to Monday and so on. So I was able to, move it around. And when you have flexibility, those things that come up, last minute, you can fit them in when you don't have like every minute scheduled. And yes, there might be days when you have to do that, but it shouldn't be a practice, right? It shouldn't be, because again, when you really focus on 20% of the most important things in your business that create 80% of the results, the Pareto rule, right? 80-20, 20% of the things create 80% of results, then the little things can slip by, or you don't need to do them, or you can outsource or whatever. Right? So when you truly do that weekly, you will prevent 80% of the fires. Because what happens is when we take time to sit down, we engage our creative brain, our solutioning brain. And then when we do that, we start remembering, oh, I have this. Oh, I forgot about this. Okay, how can I do this and that? If we try to do that during the day when we're more tactical, when we're into doing, our creative brain can't switch. We can't do a tactical meeting and a strategic meeting at the same time. It's just our brain cannot do that, right? So we create that space for the creative strategic brain to click in. When you're planning, you will see your brain will serve you certain thoughts and serve you certain, like, oh, what about this? What about that? So you will prevent a lot of fires if you do that. Then it does reduce stress 100%, hugely. When you plan weekly and you know what you have. It prevents overscheduling if you do it in a way where, okay, what do I have to do? Here's my schedule. What are my commitments that I already committed to? Now, out of the things that I want to do, how much time do they take me? How do I check them up? And then you're realizing, oh, it's too much. There's no way I can fit it. So you can, a week ahead, you can already plan, right? You can move things around again. If you do it last minute, it's hard to do it. And then brings that intention. Do I really need to do it at all this week, tomorrow, or whatever? Or maybe I don't. Right. Okay. So yeah, breaking down projects and tasks into smaller achievable pieces. The ones that don't feel like, oh my God, how am I going to find time? There's no way I can do that. It's more of, yep, I can do it. So again, research shows like we can focus for about 90 minutes to 2 hours on something that's creative and really be focused. After that, if we don't take a break, our productivity slows down. So even if you try to push yourself, you become slower, less creative, and so on. No point. You need to take a break. We'll talk about it in a sec. Okay, so like about an hour and a half. So if you have longer projects, chunk them up this way, either whether you're doing it within a day or whether you're spreading them throughout the days. And then one thing I want to talk about the schedule is just sometimes, for example, if I have things scheduled throughout the day, so like just to rebuke the myth of being boxed in throughout the week, if I don't have a crash deadline to do it for that week, if there is a day when, like I don't feel like doing this, I'll move things around. I'll see, okay, what do I have on Tuesday that I can do now? And I'll move things. So sometimes I go with my mood. But once you're in the rhythm, it's like most of the time you're just, going, okay, this is what I'm planning. But that's okay. You can totally switch around. Again, you're in charge, you're in control, you get to decide. And then of course, taking action, right? So taking action, couple of things. Again, if that's something that you usually procrastinate with, make it easy for yourself to start. So for example, writers, what they do, like professional writers, they actually have a writing habits. They don't write when they feel like it. They actually create a habit when every day they sit, and whether they write a sentence, whether they write a paragraph or 3 pages, whatever, depending on how it flows, but they force themselves in a way to write a little bit. So making it easy might mean, you're putting up your laptop and opening a Word document. So then when you're ready, like you don't have to do those 3 steps, right? Or writing the first word or whatever, making it as easy as possible to start. Or let's say you want to work out and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to run. I hate it. So, and if you're doing it first thing in the morning, laying down the clothes like right under your bed. So you wake up and you go into those clothes, right? Or putting them in your car if you're, doing it in the afternoon after errands or whatever, after coming back from the office, making it easy to take action. And then the last piece is rest and recharge. And by rest, I mean taking breaks throughout the day, because again, naturally, even if our brain will get tired, right? Like we make, 50,000 decisions a day. Some of them are subconscious. No, sorry, 35. We have 60,000 thoughts a day, but about 35,000 decisions a day. And they take up energy, right? They take up real energy. So that's why if we have a lot of a day that we make decisions and we work on things and so on, we do feel drained at the end, like our brain is using energy. So that's why, for example, Steve Jobs, he always wore the same clothes because he wanted to reduce the number of decisions he made to leave his energy to the most important decisions for the company, for Apple. That was the main reason why he was always in black and simple. He kept it simple for that. So we need the break. Like you actually, because sometimes we think like, oh, if I take a break 30 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever, well, I'm gonna lose that time. I have so much to do. But the truth is when we get tired, we get slower. We're getting distracted. We're losing focus and so on. That 15 minutes will actually save you a lot of time. You'll feel better and you'll finish your task, whatever you have, much faster. So schedule in breaks, take breaks. Take lunch, even if it's, again, 3 minutes at least every hour and a half. You should take, even if it's a quick break. Okay. Like what I said, like, I know that some people were saying like, oh, there's this Pomodoro technique, like every 20, 25 minutes, take a break and so on. Personally, what I do, if I have a monotonous task that is not creative, I don't know, data entry or creating a post or something that doesn't take long, then I'll do that. Like I'll work for 25 minutes and take a break. But if I'm more in the creative mode and I don't know, creating content or for my clients or writing something or whatever, then I like that hour and a half. Because again, by the time I'm focused and I'm fully in flow, it takes 20 minutes. So I don't want to be taking a break right after because that gets me out of the flow. But that's personal. Right? And so rest, then recharging is so, and then sleep. So part of the rest, don't fall into, I sleep when I die, 6 hours is enough, and so on. Again, the creative brain is the brain that creates solutions, the brain that gets you strategic thinking in your business. Then strategic thinking is your competitive advantage. That's how you stand out. That brain only works when it's rested, when it's well fed, right? So eating well, not a nutritionist or health, but feeding your brain well. Resting, so good sleep, again, 7 to 9 hours, I guess. It's like a standard for adults. Having enough sleep is critical to your optimal performance as a CEO. I'm not even saying like personal, in your personal life and your health-wise, but optimal performance as a CEO. And then recharging is, taking time for yourself on the weekend. And during the week, if you can't, like, a walk or whatever, but I consider that resting, right? So recharging is taking a longer time, not just 30 minutes here and there, but taking longer time. So making sure you do go on a vacation, or even if it's staycation, doesn't matter, but like not, really disconnecting from work and just doing things that you love and so on. Again, inspiration comes from there. A lot of innovation can come from just resting. So weekend vacation, self-care. Any questions? I'm going to look at my tips if there's anything that I forgot to say, but any questions, any thoughts on?
Thank you, Maggie. My brain's still trying to wrap my head around just not scheduling every minute. So that's where I got stuck.
I would say I actually had that conversation with today with a couple of ladies I was meeting, is that very often we want to, like, we read a book, let's say Miracle Morning. Like, the conversation was about Miracle Morning, right? So like good habits and so on, and read a book, oh my God, I got to do it. But then there's so much in there that you get overwhelmed because you want to do it perfect, you want to do it right away, and so on. And it's kind of the same like trying to go to a gym in January every day when you haven't exercised for 2 years, right? Everybody signs up for the gym. by by February, the gyms are empty because we try to take on too much. Start small, right? So Victoria, what I want to say, maybe start like one day. Okay, one day, maybe Friday, because it's easy, it's end of the week. I'm going to try not to schedule every minute. I'm going to, schedule in breaks since one and see how it goes. And then also, whenever you're trying to implement a new habit and so on, start the smallest you can, and don't have try not to have that attitude of all or nothing, meaning, okay, if this time didn't work out, it's okay, I will try the next day, rather than, oh, it didn't work out, now I'm not going to do it. It will never work out, right? The beginnings are the hardest, but when you think about why do I want to do it, what is my reward, what can I get if I stick with it, it might be much easier. Because when we think about it, every choice has a price, right? We either have a bit of pain to have a long-term gain, or we feel the discomfort all the time, forever, and get even worse. Like sometimes what works for me is like, oh, I don't feel like doing something, but then I bring myself to think, okay, what if I don't do it? What happens then? Even if it's the smallest thing, oh, I'll get behind. Oh my God, I'll do this. And that pain of not doing the thing can also, give me the motivation. Okay, you know what? Kick your butt, do it. So just bringing yourself to that, what if I don't do it? What if I continue, going on the path that I'm on that I don't necessarily like for the next year or two? How is that going to work out for me?
Cindy said, I'm so guilty of over promising things and then overwhelming myself with impossible deadlines. Like, Cindy, you want to elaborate on that? Maybe Maggie has some tips for you.
I am just like, no problem, I'll get to you tomorrow. That's impossible. my day is already full. Why do I say that? And it's like my instinct overwhelmed when so that has been problematic in the past, but you have been more realistic with what I promise, because it's better to, maybe overshoot, be like, that's it. Get that today, and then I'm anxious 5 days because I can't get around to it. So that's been tough, but I liked, Maggie, what you said about giving yourself time to breathe. To just to give myself the opportunity to actually have time for myself, to work on the business, to do the client work I'm promising, as opposed to trying to fit it in between meetings. Because I notice when I have client meetings, I have trouble actually focusing on work because I'm anticipating the fact that, oh, I'm going to have a meeting. There's no point in starting my work. I'm going to be interrupted. So now I've limited to just 3 days, which gave me a complex at first because I'm like, well, what if that means people won't book with me? But, someone put it very smartly and they're like, well, do you get mad that the dentist isn't open on this day, or do you make their operating hours? That's a good point.
Yeah.
Service, and if they want it, they will make the time fit in their day based on when I'm available. So that was a huge shift for me that helped a lot.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, because sometimes we set those expectations in ourselves, Cindy, what we think others think, which are not always true. Because if you, as you say, if you look at yourself, you don't get upset that the dentist is closed on that day. And even if they told you, oh, I'm closed on Wednesday, you'll be like, okay, I will sign up on Thursday, right? So it will be the same with our clients. If our clients want to work with us, they won't care. Like if it's an emergency, they would tell you, but most of the time, oh yeah, no problem. You do only meetings in the afternoon. That's fine. Let's find an afternoon that works, for example, right? But yeah, one thing I wanted to mention maybe to you, Cindy, that if you're switching a lot, right, between like client work and meeting and this and that, having even a minute to breathe, ground yourself, go outside, close your eyes, counting 10 to 0 is good because it has that finish to just kind of like clear the calculator, to be able to be, you're present here, and now you're putting that in your brain pocket, whatever that meeting was about, and you get yourself ready, present for the next meeting or the next work, and be present there. Because when we're present, that's when we're the most productive, the more effective, because we listen well, we have ideas and so on, rather than we're half present thinking about this and so on, right? We're missing a lot of that. Multitasking is not good for us. We think, and especially as women, we think we can multitask. We're like, oh yeah, I can do it all the time and so on. But it actually takes longer, and the output is of a less quality when we try to do it. That because we cannot multitask two cognitive tasks. We can walk and listen because walk is subconscious. We don't think about it. We just walk, right? But the moment we try to do cognitive tasks, so for example, a meeting and a client work, you're missing out on a meeting or you're missing out on quality of the client work. And it takes you much longer to do as if when you did it separately and focused on one thing at a time.
Maggie, thank you so much. You've given us a lot to digest. How can everybody connect with you, get in touch with you to maybe elaborate on everything you shared? Is there anything you want to leave with us before we sign off?
Yes, sure. So my business name is Stairway to Leadership. So the best way to reach me is my email, maggie@stairwaytoleadership.com, one word. If you want to connect with me on Instagram, it's maggie.perotin, last name .s2l for Stairway to Leadership as well. So that's the best way. If you want to connect for just one-on-one to chat or have a further conversation about it, I'm happy to do it. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much for everybody for coming.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, everyone who was able to join live. Good to see you all. As of September, we'll be back to all of our regular programming. So we'll have our leadership hour on September 15th, networking on September 28th, whatever the Wednesday is. Yeah, 29th. And yeah, we had our first in-person event last Friday, so we will be doing more in-person stuff soon. And Moco Cruise will be picking back up in October as well. So Sam will be updating you guys and emailing you on everything. I'm just gonna stop the recording so Sophie doesn't have to do so much editing.